In Module 3, you are going to write your first lesson plan. And so I would like to point out a couple things. The lesson plan is on a read aloud, and it is one setting, one time reading the book. But it could be after repeatedly reading the book beforehand. So I found a book. It's one of my favorites, Bear Snores On. I love this entire series. There's a bunch of them by Karma Wilson and Jane Chapman. It's about a bear who's sleeping and is hibernating, and some other animals who do not hibernate come and have a party, end up waking him up. He's a little mad that he's woken up, but then he's disappointed that he's missed out on the party. And so it's about how his friends kind of make it right with him and what happens at the end. It's a great story with lots of rhyme, repeated phrasing, and rich vocabulary. So my lesson plan, what I have written in addition to the notes that are in the plan, in the template that you have, is in blue. So if you can't differentiate between the two colors, please let me know, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory when you compare the template to what I've written here. I leave the title, the author, I give the age group, and my age group isn't too specific, it's just preschool, because you could do this with 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds easily. I give my SMART goal, which we practiced writing last time, and that's why we did that. We practiced SMART goals, and now we're going to use a SMART goal. And so I state the students will be able to retell the story using key vocabulary, repeated phrases, and main details using the felt pieces for the story. What are the materials I'm going to need? The felt pieces of the main characters, a felt board, and I'll say the book. Kansas Early Learning Standards. You need to actually use the Kansas Early Learning Standards when you complete this. Get out your copy of the Kansas Early Learning Standards. I have pulled it up here on the website. And so under key ideas and details for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, we say with prompting, support asks and answer simple questions about the story, uses pictures and illustrations to tell and retell parts of a story. For 4-year-olds, with prompting and support, identifies characters, settings, and major events. With prompting and support, retells the stories with increasing detail and accuracy. So I am covering CLLP3-2, CLLP4-2, and CLLP4-3. I will write those here. And I actually want you to be sure and include that entire standard. So you can actually highlight and copy it into the template. Just like that. And again, I'm going to go over here, highlight the 2, copy them, go back, and add them in. Easy enough. So I'm actually only using them, and you can only use 3, and they must be, for this assignment, communication and learning standards. We are focusing on reading, pre-literacy here. The prior knowledge, setting the stage for the whole situation of why I can do this activity the way I can do it. The students have listened to this story read aloud for at least 2 days. The students have had the book, the felt pieces, and video recording of the story available during center time, both in the morning and afternoon. As we have read, video recording should not replace listening to books be read aloud. But if I'm reading aloud a story at circle time throughout the week as my week-long read aloud, it would be appropriate for me to offer just that YouTube recording of the story that children could go to during centers and listen to on an iPad, even an old smartphone, or a computer. I would lock it down where that is the only story they can listen to. I would do that. Even better than that is if you can get tape recordings like on an old tape cassette or CD recordings of the story, where the children hold the book themselves, flip through the story while listening to it be read aloud to them. When I had my own classrooms, I used it back in the day, it was tape cassettes. And so I actually had a tape player and the cassettes there, and the children would listen. And there would always be 2 to 3 titles. There would be the title we were currently reading in class, and then 2 or 3 old titles that we had been reading. So they could go back and listen to old stories, some of their favorites. And then every week, a new one would come, other old ones would stay, but one would usually leave, so it didn't become overwhelming. Students have previously worked with retelling pieces, including felt pieces, 3D figures, finger puppets, and such. So you get the idea. This is a routine in our classroom. So before reading, I state explicitly what I'm going to do. During reading, what is the teacher going to do? You could implement this lesson. I've given you enough detail that you could implement this lesson. For my assessment, I tell you exactly what I'm going to use. I'm going to use a matrix, and I'm going to be assessing vocabulary used, accuracy in retelling and correctly sequencing events, and the ability to name characters. Additionally, with my next steps, I'm going to keep reading the story, keep having the children reread the story. Children could write their own story. We could also, and we would also, read more of the Bear series by the same authors, allowing us to compare and contrast with those books. Last section is teacher dialogue. Don't skip this section. You're not going to write every single question you might ask, but you're going to write a lot of them and phrases, because by going through this process, you will ask better questions. You will give better scaffolding support to children without giving them too much, teaching them to think, teaching them to problem solving. You will react better in the moment and be more articulate if you actually do this yourself. It's much like me today. I could have put up the template and talked through it, but I would not have been articulate in the same way that I am right now if I had not walked through every single step, just like I expect you to do. This will take a little bit of time your first time. I will give lots of feedback this module, because next module you're going to write 4 additional lesson plans to make 5 total on the same read aloud that will be of this concept of using the same book all week long. So this one, put a lot of time and energy into, because the better you do this one and the more you understand the process, the easier it will be next module. I will also post this lesson plan as a PDF with the video so that you can look at it, pull it up, study it, and hopefully that will help you. But if you have questions, do not hesitate to ask.